Welcome back to another NFL Pick'em video. We missed last week thanks to some editor issues, but don't worry, we are doing the podcast format again, which should help me get videos out to you on time and consistently throughout the rest of the NFL season. But before we get into today's video, I wanted to ask you to please subscribe to the channel, ring the bell for notification. Really helps out. If you're a fan of the NFL, you'll love this channel. As we release multiple NFL-related videos every Thursday and Saturday all year long. And now we can get back to our pick'ems. So we're going to start out with our pick'ems with the Chargers and the Falcons because we've already had 4 games this week. And if you watched my video on Power Rankings where I picked all 4 of those games, I'm 4 for 4 thus far. And yes, I know I picked all favorites, but hey, I want some credit that I called both the Bears and the Raiders to cover the spread, even though I called the Lions and Chiefs to win. So I want a little bit of credit for what I did there. Either way, we're starting with Sunday's matchups. The Chargers visiting the Falcons. Both these teams are currently in the playoffs in the AFC and NFC respectively. They're both doing significantly better than they did last year. And with the Falcons being at home, they should have a bit of a leg up in this game. But both Vegas and, frankly, myself have the Chargers expected to win this game. And it just makes sense. The Chargers have been a much better team than the Falcons. The Falcons have really only beat the Buccaneers and nobody else of significant note. They've lost a number of games in a row. Their defense leaves a little bit to be desired. And their offense, while it's decent with Kirk Cousins, Kyle Pitts, Bijan Robinson, Drake London, etc., it's not quite at the level you need to be to take down a Chargers team whose offense has been much better than we all expected, primarily because Justin Herbert, is Justin Herbert. And their defense has also been a significantly improved unit over what they were in 2023. Brandon Staley really did a number on that team. You can tell with how good it is under Jim Harbaugh. And so I have the Chargers winning this game, even though it's on the road. It could be a really good matchup. I could definitely see the Falcons winning it, but I'm taking the Chargers to pull this one off. Next up, we have the Colts visiting the New England Patriots. And if this were, 2 decades ago, this would be much-watched TV. Peyton Manning versus Tom Brady. But in 2024, this is Anthony Richardson versus Drake May. Not throwing any shade at those guys. Anthony Richardson has had some decent games recently. And on the flip side, Drake May has been quite good for a Patriots team that basically has nobody else on their roster. And so I'm not throwing shade at the quarterbacks. It's just not Manning and Brady. And in terms of who wins this matchup, while we do have the New England Patriots being the home team in this one, their roster is not very good. It feels like some of their wins have been a bit cheesy or like just something weird happened to the other team. Like, remember when the Bengals sucked for the first month of the season? Yeah, that gave the Patriots a win. On the flip side, the Indianapolis Colts have been a much improved unit since Anthony Richardson has come back. Their defense is improving. I think they do have some good offensive players at the wide receiver position as well as running back in Jonathan Taylor, and their offensive line is decent. And so I think Anthony Richardson will be able to do enough to win this game. I acknowledge that the Patriots could win this game if Anthony Richardson blunders it like he has in a few of the games. But again, Colts win this one because, well, I think Anthony Richardson will do enough that they're just the better team. Next up, we have a divisional rivalry. We have the Houston Texans visiting the Jacksonville Jaguars. And the Houston Texans lost at home last week to the Tennessee Titans, another divisional opponent who, frankly, I think is worse than the Jacksonville Jaguars. And so there is every reason to believe that the Houston Texans will somehow lose this game to the Jaguars, especially because the Jags are coming off a bye. That being said, it's still the Jacksonville Jaguars, led by Mac Jones of all people. This team lost in their last game, 52-6 to the Detroit Lions? Like, I understand the Detroit Lions are a very good team. Obviously, I'm a fan of the Lions. I think very highly of them. But 52-6 to anybody in the NFL is atrocious for the Jaguars. Doug Peterson is a lame duck. The team doesn't want to play for him. And so even though the Houston Texans are reeling right now and going on the road to a team coming off a bye, I'm still giving the edge to the Texans. And if the Texans lose this game and, the Colts win this game, all of a sudden the AFC South is wide open for the Colts to leapfrog the Texans. And with how bad the Colts have been this year, that would be a big commentary on how much of a sophomore slump CJ Stroud is having. He's still a good quarterback, don't mistake me, but he's been significantly worse than I expected. I did call the Texans to miss the playoffs this year But that was more a function of me thinking that a lot of other teams in the AFC would be good, such as the Jaguars and the Colts. And that I thought the Colts would be able to take the division and the Texans just wouldn't get a wild card. But looking at the NFC or looking at the AFC now, if the Texans don't make the playoffs, that's a commentary on how much they've regressed more than it is on how good the AFC is. And after this, we have the Seattle Seahawks visiting the New York Jets. The Seattle Seahawks are leading the NFC West, which is wild. This team has not looked that good to me in most of the games they've played. They basically beat up on bad teams and their division, and that's about it. Like, early in the season, they beat, I think, the Patriots. They beat the, who was it? They beat the Patriots. They beat the Dolphins when they didn't have Tua. And then they started losing games. And now they've beaten the 49ers and they've beaten the Cardinals, which was a big win for them last week to get on top of the division. But I don't think this team is going to end up as the winners of the NFC West. I would be shocked. I don't think they're that good a team. On the flip side, the New York Jets are clearly not a good team, and I would not be surprised to see them move on from Aaron Rodgers come the end of the season. It will be difficult for them to move on because of his contract and because, what's their alternative, but I'd move on from Aaron Rodgers exclusively because he has a locker room cancer, and you've gotten rid of the head coach, you've gotten rid of the general manager, you've already taken away Nathaniel Hackett's play-calling duties. Like, all that's left is Devontae Adams, who you could cut for free at the end of the year, and then, the ghosts of guys like Alan Lazard, etc. But who cares? You can let those guys walk and basically just reset the franchise, move on from the mistakes when you went full Jets and decided Aaron Rodgers was the savior and would give you a Super Bowl, which, come on, I mean, he only gave one Super Bowl to the Green Bay Packers, who are a much better team than the New York Jets. I don't know what Jets fans were thinking, but, the media decided to hop all on it and think the Jets were a good team. I, for one, did not believe that. If you've seen any of my early stage videos or you watched me stream last year, I've been screaming Aaron Rodgers and the Jets would never work for a while. But in this game, as much as I want to talk negatively about the Jets, I'm picking them in this one. And this is more a commentary on the fact that I don't think the Seahawks are that good. The Jets are at home. I just think they'll find a way to win this football game. And I'm going to take them in this one. If they were on the road, though, if it was Seahawks at home, this would be Seahawks easy. But I'm going to give the slight edge to the Jets based solely off home field advantage. After that, we got a great game here. Pittsburgh Steelers versus the Cincinnati Bengals. This should be an absolute barn burner. The Bengals need wins. This team has 7 losses already. They are a fair bit out of the playoffs in the AFC. They're chasing the Denver Broncos and the Los Angeles Chargers. Both of them are very good teams. They're not going to be able to catch the Steelers or the Ravens to win this division. And so the Bengals are in trouble and they need wins. On the flip side, the Steelers know if they want to keep hold of this division and a home field game in the playoffs, they also need wins. And this is a division rivalry game. They're not only going to play this game, they still have another game after this coming up this season. So I absolutely think that this is going to be must-win for both teams. And the Cincinnati Bengals are favored primarily because they're at home, and I buy that. I think they should be favored. While the Steelers, I think this is must-win for them if they want to give themselves a chance at the Super Bowl. It's not must-win for the playoffs. They've basically already locked in playoffs as long as they don't implode. And, I mean, Mike Tomlin is Mike Tomlin. He's going to get this team into the playoffs no matter what, seemingly. But this is a game that they often lose, a division game, not against the Ravens, on the road. But I'm still picking the Steelers to win. I know the Bengals need this one a lot more, and I understand why they're favored. But this just seems like a game where all signs point to the Bengals, that the Steelers just play a greasy football game and win it. As well, I think the Bengals will put up points on the Steelers, but they won't put up a ton because the Steelers' defense is really good, and the Bengals' defense is trash. And this Steelers' offense with Russell Wilson and George Pickens and Mike Williams and Pat Freiermuth and Najee Harris and Jalen Warren, etc., I think we'll be able to do more than enough to put up points on the Cincinnati Bengals to cover anything that Joe Burrow, T. Higgins, and Jamar Chase are able to do. And after that, we have the Tennessee Titans visiting the Washington Commanders. Oh, the Albert Haynesworth Bowl. And for those of you who don't remember Albert Haynesworth, he was, I think, the first $100 million contract for a defensive player when he was with the Titans, moved to the Commanders, and became literally the worst contract in history because he never did anything for the Commanders, who were the Redskins, obviously, at the time. In terms of this game, though, I'm not going to talk about it for long. The Commanders are winning this one. The Tennessee Titans suck. Yes, they won on the road against the Houston Texans last week, but that was much more a commentary on the Texans than it was on the Titans. And the Commanders, yes, they're on a losing streak as well. They have not been as good in the last few weeks, but they're going to get it figured out. Mayo Man is not beating Jaden Daniels. Commanders win. Let's move on. And we're going to move on to the Arizona Cardinals visiting the Minnesota Vikings. A much better football game that I can talk for a little bit longer about. The Arizona Cardinals, a team as well as many that are in must-win territory. Again, because of their loss to the Seattle Seahawks, they are not leading the division, even though they are tied with the Seahawks for the best record in the division. Whereas the Minnesota Vikings, they're only one game behind the Detroit Lions if they win this football game. And they have one game remaining against the Detroit Lions. So if the Vikings continue to hold pace with the Lions and then win against the Lions, they'll be tied with them for the divisional lead because they'll be 1-1 against each other. And then it just comes down to tiebreaks. So this is absolutely must-win territory for the Minnesota Vikings. And they know that the Lions have games coming up against the Packers, the Vikings, the Bears, the Bills, as well as the 49ers, who can definitely put up a contest against any team in this league if they actually are, healthy and show up. And so the Vikings know if they can keep winning, the Lions are likely to drop some games. I'm a Lions fan. I think the Lions are going to drop some of those games as good as they are. And so if the Vikings can pull off wins against teams like the Arizona Cardinals here, they could end up in the number 1 seed or even the number 2 seed in the NFC because, again, you have the Philadelphia Eagles, who they might not lose games for the remainder of the season because they play in, the NFC East, which is a lot easier than the NFC North. All that being said, though, I think the Cardinals are in much more win now territory, as I say, because they need to take this division, and every team is within one game of each other. Every NFC West team is in must-win territory because the winner is probably going to win like 75+% of their games down the stretch, and unless the Commanders really falter, you have to overcome a pretty good record just to get into the playoffs in the wild card. And let's be clear, if you look at a team like the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, yeah, they don't have a great record, but they got a really easy schedule for the remainder of the season and should easily be able to put up 10 wins if they just, play decent down the stretch. And so the NFC is nuts. Both these teams need to win. But I'm giving it to the home team. I'm giving it to the Minnesota Vikings. I think the Cardinals can still make the playoffs even with losing this game. And in fact, I think they will based on what I've seen from them lately. But they're going to take an L this week. I also think they're making it because, the Seahawks take an L this week. And so that helps them out. Next up, we have Buccaneers visiting the Carolina Panthers. I'm not going to leave you in suspense. I already talked about the Buccaneers. I expect to come close to winning out, if not completely winning out. They're winning this football game. Yes, the Carolina Panthers played well against the Chiefs last week, but the Raiders played well against the Chiefs this week. The Chiefs have not been good. They've allowed every team to stay in it, and the Buccaneers are the complete opposite. Like, the Buccaneers beat both the Lions and the Eagles this year. They're a good team, and they just came off an absolute shellacking of the New York Giants, where they were up 30-0. I think they won 37 because they didn't care at the end of the game. They're going to be able to take down the Panthers, even if it is on the road, no problem. Let's move on. And we're moving on to the LA Rams visiting the New Orleans Saints. The Saints are, they're out of the playoff picture, but the Rams are obviously still in it, primarily because the NFC West is, wide open. I continue to say it. In this game, I think the Saints are going to have a decent shot at it, primarily because they're at home, and this is a rematch of the very famous non-PI call against the Rams, which sent them to the Super Bowl, and I'm sorry, Saints fans, you're going to relive the pain because the Rams are winning this football game. They're back and healthy. They are a much better team since they've been back and healthy. They'll be able to take down a Saints team that is just not that talented. And again, the Rams are must win. They're going to be hungry. They're going to win. Move on to the next game. And that's, oh my God, the Eagles and the Baltimore Ravens. This is going to be the best game of the week, bar none. I don't care what other games you're interested in. Watch this football game. the Eagles have been one of the best teams in the NFL. I would put them right now 2 or 3. On my power rankings, I put them 3, primarily because the Bills were on bye, and I didn't think I could drop them below the Eagles. But, hey, the Eagles, if they show up and beat this Ravens team on the road, if the Bills don't shellac the 49ers, definitely could see the Eagles moving into top 2 in my power rankings. On the flip side, the Ravens, I've talked about them many times. They are inconsistent, but they are damn good when they show up. And they're at home in this game, and so the NFL in Vegas has the Ravens favored in this one. But you know what? While I think absolutely the Ravens can put up points on many teams, this Eagles defense has been really good this season. As Saquon Barkley be as Saquon Barkley do, I think he's going to be able to put up points on this Ravens defense, and I have the Eagles winning this one. If the Ravens are going to win this, they got to shut down Barkley. Because I don't think Jalen Hurts and the passing attack for the Eagles have been that strong. But it doesn't matter because Saquon is Saquon. And so if the Ravens can shut Saquon down, they got a chance in this one. But I don't think they'll be able to. I think the Eagles defense can slow down Lamar and Derrick Henry. Not stop them, but slow them down. And so they're going to get the win on the road and send the Ravens to an 8-5 record, which they seem like they should be a better team than that. But, they've just taken some ugly losses this year, and this one won't be an ugly one, but it'll be another one. And moving on to our second last game, our Sunday Night Football game, we have the 49ers visiting the Buffalo Bills. I have given the 49ers credit every single week. Every single week I say, this team's too talented. They're going to get it figured out. They got the roster. They're getting CMC back. Kyle Shanahan's a good coach, etc., etc., etc. And half the time I'm right. But half the time I'm wrong because this team is basically 500. In fact, I think they're a little below 500. Now, I probably would have called them to lose last week to the Packers had I known that Brock Purdy wasn't going to be playing. And I still don't know if Brock Purdy is going to be playing in Buffalo in a game that likely will be a Snow Bowl because it's in Buffalo and it's December. But even if Brock Purdy does play, this is a Bills win. Brock Purdy will be playing hurt. If he does play, a Snow Bowl always lends itself to the Bills, who are much more prepared for it than a team from San Francisco, which, never goes below 10 degrees and never gets snow ever. I mean, I live there. I can tell you for a fact. They don't get snow. And the Buffalo Bills coming off a bye as well. They'll have 2 weeks to prepare for it. I expect Amari Cooper to be fully integrated in this offense and be very, very good for the first time, really, since his first week with Buffalo for the Bills. And so I just have the Bills winning one and basically knocking the 49ers out of the playoff race, which, crazy to say. This was the favorite coming out of the NFC coming into the season, and looks like they're not even going to make the playoffs, which is nuts. If Brock Purdy plays, they have a shot, but again, this is a Bills victory in my mind either way. And our final game of Week 13 of the NFL season is the Cleveland Browns visiting the Denver Broncos. And the Cleveland Browns are a much better team since they moved on from Deshaun Watson. I mean, they're coming off a mini bye because last week they played on Thursday where they beat the Pittsburgh Steelers. And a couple weeks before that, they beat the Baltimore Ravens. Like, they've had some good wins since Jameis has taken over. But the Denver Broncos are a really good defense. They have a solid offense and are a much more complete team, and they know they need to continue to win football games to hold pace. And so, wow, the Cleveland Browns, I expect them to keep this game competitive. I do think, though, the only reason they were competitive against teams like the Ravens and the Steelers is because they got Jim Schwartz as a defensive coordinator. And that guy knows the teams he plays consistently and schemes appropriately. He's really good at his job. But he doesn't know the Broncos and Sean Payton as well as he knows teams like the Ravens and the Steelers. And so I don't think that Jim Schwartz is going to be able to do enough for the Browns to win this one. And the Broncos take the dub and move to 8 wins on the season, which, I mean, good for the Broncos. Like, let's go, Broncos. No one expected that from you this season. And so I'm happy. I am happy for the Denver Broncos. And so that brings us to our total weekly picks. You can see here, I did call each of the Lions, Cowboys, Packers, and Chiefs on Thursday. I'm pretty happy about that. I know I had the Chiefs as the lock of the week, but if you watch my power ranking video where I picked them, I also did pick the Raiders to cover that game. I mean, my lock of the week should have been wrong because, frankly, the Raiders probably should have won that game. But hey, 4 for 4 start. I will take it all day, every day. Sadly, Vegas also had the same 4 and is still a bit ahead of me. But I have a couple upsets this week that I think can come through. I have the Jets beating the Seahawks. And I also have the Steelers beating the Bengals. And finally, the Eagles beating the Ravens. So 3 upsets. Hopefully I can go 2 for 3. Cut back on Vegas a little bit. Wouldn't that be nice? We'll see what ends up happening. But that's it for today's video. I hope you all enjoyed it. Again, leave a like and comment down below. If you did, help us out, help us grow. And let me know if you like this style. I know I screw up a little bit. This is why I typically use an editor. But hey, this is cheaper, easier to do, and it just allows me to get content to you on time, which is the most important thing, because I don't want to keep having content come super late on the days we're planning on posting, or the next day, or not at all. It's not good for you guys, and it's not what I like to do. I usually film these multiple days ahead of time, and so hopefully this is better. You get your content more on time, and you enjoy it. Either way, hope you enjoy Sunday of the NFL season and Monday. I'll see you all next week for our power rankings and pick'ems. Peace!